Notion.
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 Notion. Notion.
Notion.
To start using Notion, a tool like Notion is very powerful.
Why is Notion so popular? A simple productivity app is a multi-billion-dollar company with one of the most obsessive user bases in tech. They turned productivity, something, well, pretty boring, into something people can identify with. So how did they do it? Many people think it's because Notion has such a great product. But guess what? So many other companies also have great products, but nobody knows them. What made Notion grow so explosively was a carefully engineered marketing strategy, one that I'm about to break down fully in this video. If you're new here, I'm Anton. I've worked with multiple million-dollar companies and founders building their marketing strategies and positioning them as premium in their space. Now, before I break down Notion's strategy, I'm about to explain their story and how they almost became a failure. Notion was founded in 2013 in San Francisco. Ivan Zhao and Simon Last were both the co-founders. Growing up, Ivan spent most of his childhood learning programming and coding, and he believed that software was built backwards, that it forced people to adapt themselves to the tool instead of letting the tool adapt itself to how people lived. So together they started Notion with a huge vision. Not a notes app, not a task manager, but a simple, flexible system that could replace documents, wikis, project management, internal tools. Great idea, right? But this idea actually almost destroyed the company because the first vision of Notion was just too complex. It was too abstract. It was too slow. It was too confusing for users. And in 2015, the company essentially collapsed. Most of the team were laid off and funds dried up. And for a period of time, Ivan was essentially working alone, rebuilding his product from scratch. He moved to Kyoto in Japan to reset and think because he was not about to give up. And while in Japan, he noticed something. Japanese design, their craftsmanship, their use of minimalism and simplicity. And that's where it clicked for him. Notion had been too complicated all this time. In 2016, Notion relaunched, flexibility and simplicity at its core. And what now became one of its most defining features, blocks. Everything in Notion was a block. Text, images, tasks, databases, pages. You weren't given a fixed system, but you had the ability to build one. While most tools tell you how to organize in a rigid structure, it lets you decide exactly how you want to organize your thinking. And that choice changes the relationship between the user and a product. Using Notion requires effort. You have to decide, you have to structure, you have to build. Most companies actually hate this. This adds friction. This slows onboarding and it's really hard to get used to. But Notion understood something that most software companies don't. When someone invests time and effort into building a system, they don't just use it, they identify with it. And over time, Notion users weren't just saying, I use Notion for notes. They were saying, this is my second brain. This is how I run my company. This is how I think. And this was the first part of their marketing strategy. At this point, Notion had evolved into something far more important than just a note-taking app. It wasn't just usable. They started positioning around identity. This is when a product stops competing with features and starts aligning with how a person sees themselves. Users stop asking, is this tool useful? They ask, is this for something like me? People didn't start using Notion because they wanted to organize their lives. They started using it because they wanted to be organized people. They wanted to feel like someone who's in control of complexity. Notion tapped into the psychology of identity. It became the tool for someone who wants to feel structured, someone who wants to think in systems, someone who wanted to build clarity. I could give you an A to Z on exactly how to structure your life. But if I gave you that, would you really feel like a structured person? Would you really care? Would you really implement it and stick to it? Probably not. Instead, by having a blank slate, like a bunch of Lego bricks that you can build, you need to work yourself. It's not given to you. And just like after building your own Lego creation, it makes you feel like a creator, like a builder. The same thing happens with Notion. When you build your own Notion system, you feel like a person who's structured, like a person who thinks clearly. The process of building creates that identity. The product reflects who you are or who you want to be. And this is often called the IKEA effect. When people build something themselves, they value it a lot more. Not because it's any better, but because that effort creates ownership. The time you invest, the decisions you make, the mistakes you fix, all of that gets embedded into what you build. That object starts becoming replaceable, and the exact same thing happens with Notion. When you build your own Notion system, you're not just using a software, you're investing effort into a structure that reflects your work. And when that happens, Leaving Notion doesn't feel like switching tools. It feels like abandoning your own work, your own logic, your own structure. This is the IKEA effect at scale. But identity alone doesn't create obsession, because for identity to fully lock in, it needs to be seen and reinforced by other people. So how did Notion achieve this? People don't just want to feel like they're a structured person. They want others to see them as a structured person. Once Notion became part of someone's identity, it naturally turned into a status signal. Not a loud one, but a recognizable one. Using Notion started to imply something about you. Notion didn't need to claim or advertise that it was used by high performers, because it simply became visible in those environments. Environments with founders that were running their companies with Notion, high achieving students that were using Notion to study. When people noticed that you used Notion, an association naturally formed. And if people I respect use this, then this tool represents competence. And if I use it myself, I'm aligning with that standard. That is exactly how status reinforcement works. Quiet recognition from the right people, to people that you want recognition from. It started to function like a badge. Just like using an Apple product signals that you're creative. Just like using Figma signals that you're a serious designer. Using Notion signal that you belong to a group who valued clarity in systems. And that's where loyalty starts to form, because once a product aligns with you, with a group identity, leaving it is no longer a functional decision, it's a social one. Switching tools now means misaligning yourself from a culture that you feel part of. It's the same reason why historically, developers rallied around tools like GitHub or founders around Slack. The product becomes shorthand for how you work and who you work like. And Notion built this without forcing a community or brand language. The culture emerged organically because it attracted a certain type of person. And once enough of those people existed in visible positions, the signal reinforced itself. Using Notion showed competence. Seeing others reinforced that belief. And that reinforcement just made the identity stronger. Individual identity became group identity. Group identity became cultural adoption. And cultural adoption created loyalty. At that point, Notion was no longer a personal productivity tool. It was socially validated. And once a product reaches this stage, its value no longer lies in what it helps you do. It lives in what it helps you be seen as. This is the power of status reinforcement. And once a product carries identity, status, and social meaning, the final step is inevitable. People start showing it, sharing it, and spreading it, not because they're told to, but because visibility itself becomes the value. People started building systems inside of Notion that they were so proud of, they couldn't help but share it. Dashboards shared on Twitter, YouTube videos breaking down their company's database, second brain content, templates passed around. This exactly here is where Notion's growth became explosive. Notion's strongest distribution channel was never ads, never partnerships. It was users publicly sharing. When someone shares a Notion template, they're showing you how to be organized. The product disappears into the background. Again, outcome and identity based. Notion understood that people don't like promoting products. They like displaying how competent they are. And Notion simply gave them a surface to do this. A clean, legible way to externalize intelligence, clarity, and structure. Every public template was a case study. Every walkthrough video pushed the brand of Notion. This is why community scales faster than any other campaign. Community virality compounds exponentially. Every new user didn't just adopt the product. They added to the ecosystem. More templates, more examples, more visible case studies. Each one lowered the activation energy for the next person. By this point, Notion had completed the full loop. A product that shaped identity, an identity that reinforced status, and a status that people wanted to make visible. That visibility snowballed distribution and built culture at such scale that Notion couldn't stop growing. And this right here is the main lesson you need to take away from Notion. Notion understood modern media. Modern media is content. They didn't try to change or adapt culture. They embedded themselves inside of it. They understood that branding today isn't about what you say in campaigns. It's about how you're positioned in content, how you're perceived. And this right here is what most brands miss. They try to buy attention with ads and campaigns. Instead of designing it for cultural adoption, they chase these campaigns instead of embedding it inside of their identity, their media, and their behavior. This was a genius strategy of Notion. Let me know in the comments what brand strategy you'd like broken down next. Thank you for watching and see you in the next one.